Without further ado, we're going to jump in with the introduction. What we plan to cover today is why budgeting matters, building a budget that works, common pitfalls, aligning your budget with your goals, and then tools and tech that can help you implement a really productive budget. We'll save some time for Q&A, and then hopefully we'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. Some of you may know me, others may not. My name is Terry, one of the co-founders of Innovative Wealth Building. I've been working in personal finance since 2011. Super passionate about financial education and financial freedom through applying the principles of prudent, good management of money. And yeah, I've had the pleasure of knowing Jen, Warren, everybody in the company since around 2013. So it's been 12 or so years of fun. And many of you on the line, I know you as well. So again, thank you for taking the time to join. Our disclaimer, this is meant to be educational. For your personal situation, please talk to your advisor. They know your situation better than I do and can give you the most relevant advice. I might mention some things around tax, legal, etc. It's not meant to be tax or legal advice. Again, this is educational and just to help give you some nuggets that may or may not be productive for your situation. So thank you for the questions in the chat box. Please put in any other questions you have, and I'll make sure that we cover them today. I want to start big picture about why budgeting matters. Overall, we all have these plans. We plan for things to be nice and smooth, but then reality hits. And reality tends to look something like this. And reality can be good and it can be bad, but the overall thing for us to keep in mind is that we have finite resources, and sometimes there's like infinite things that we could potentially spend money on. So by being planful, we can reduce stress, bring clarity to our lives, and then also have a better chance of reaching and achieving our goals. Dave Ramsey had a pretty good quote. He says that your budget tells your money where to go instead of you wondering where your money went. Stated differently, by proactively planning, you tell your money what to do, so you're the boss, instead of letting your money pretend to be the boss and tell you what it's going to do. I would much rather be in charge of my money than the other way around. So that's why I would say that budgeting matters. Life without a budget. Some people say it would be amazing. What I've found in almost 15 years of doing this is that life without a budget is like being in a boat that has a bunch of little holes in them. If you have little holes, it can sink a really large ship. If you have a bucket full of water, it can drain your bucket. So by being intentional about our budget or our cash flow, we can fill the little holes. And if there's certain things we want to spend money on, then great. But if there are things that we're unnecessarily spending money on, that's not so good. One of the clients I spoke to recently, we went through a budgeting activity and they found subscriptions that they were paying for that they didn't need, duplicate expenses. They found all sorts of things. They went back and did some refining, and now they're saving hundreds of dollars a month, which can now go towards other things that are more important than paying for two Netflix accounts. So, again, life without a budget maybe has some inefficiencies because it's so easy to swipe the credit card or to swipe a debit card. We don't really know where all our money's going. So, budgeting helps us fill some of those holes. So I wanted to talk for a moment about what a budget is and what a budget is not. Your budget really should be your roadmap to help you direct what you want to do with your money. Your budget is not meant to be something that feels like prison. It's not meant to be a torture device that prevents you from having fun or enjoying your life. Again, your budget really should be a guiding light. It should be a roadmap to help you reach your goals and also enjoy the ride. Think of it like a GPS. Tells you what turns to take, tells you maybe what roads to avoid. It can tell you, hey, if you keep going this way, you might hit a traffic jam. So again, the budget should be a guide and a partner to help you achieve the things that you want to achieve. So I'll go to a couple of the questions in just a second once we get through a couple strategies. Here's what I would say. Most people don't have a written budget. If they do, it's old, it's outdated, or it's inaccurate. So I would say step one is to create literally any budget. There's a bazillion templates. We'll email you our template if you want it, but start with any budget. Step two is after you've created that budget, look at your real spending. Pull your last month or your last 3 months of credit card transactions or bank transactions and add up what you're spending on food, what you're spending on dining out, what you're spending on entertainment. Compare that number to your budget. And if you're like me, you're going to be really surprised at what you find out. As an example, my wife and I, we did our budget and we said, yeah, we spend $500 a month on groceries. We thought that made sense. We went back and looked at receipts. We were way wrong. And I don't mean by 5%. We were off by like 100%. So you'll sometimes get a reality check, and that's a good thing because only by admitting there's a problem or finding out that there's a problem can we make the requisite adjustments to be on track for success. So I would just encourage you, create a written budget, review your real spending, compare apples to apples, and then make apple pie. And by make apple pie, I mean make the most of the situation. And that can be adjustments, that can be cutting things, that can be adding income, but only by really digging in can you make progress. So Carmen asks, what would be the typical type of allocation for the different categories? There's a lot of different takes on that. One of the rules out there is around defining needs and wants. So that could be something good to think about. So you make gross income, you pay taxes. Of all the money that's left over, one way to start is what percentage of your money after taxes goes towards your future? So that's savings and investing. What percentage of your money goes towards needs? These are necessities, electricity, your rent or mortgage where you live, maybe your cell phone bill. And then what percentage goes towards wants? What I find sometimes is people are spending quite a lot on their wants and then not as much on saving for the future. So that's one way to look at your budget, and that's to have percentages towards your future, towards wants and needs. As a general rule, 20% of your after-tax money going towards your future is going to be enough to put you on track for success. But that's only assuming you start proactively saving in your early 20s. If you start proactively saving in your 30s or 40s, honestly, you're going to need more than 20% to go towards saving and investing probably to catch up on average. So there's all these rules out there. The most popular one I know of is called the 50-30-20. 50% of your income towards needs, 30% towards wants, 20% towards saving and investing. So that could be a good starting point. But again, your savings rate, which is the percentage of your income that goes towards your future, is the number one predictor of financial success. So that's where I would definitely start. Best ways to handle annual or semi-annual bills like auto insurance. That's one of my tips later, which is to not forget those irregular expenses that don't come up every month. Um, the way that I handle those is when I do my monthly budget, I just take them from being quarterly and I put them into a monthly format. So if it's $500 a quarter, I'll kind of divide that by three and say, okay, it's 167 a month. That way, when I make my budget, it's realistic. It's really hard to not spend money when it's in our bank account. So depending on how big those irregular expenses are, maybe there's a separate account that you have those pulled from so that it doesn't impact your month-to-month spending. What I like to do is I set a certain cash buffer that's kind of my 0 point. So instead of my checking account being zero for real, $10,000 is my zero. And that's what I try to do. I try to keep that number steady. If it goes way below that, I'm overspending. If it goes way above that, I'm underspending. Spoiler alert, the underspending never happens. So those irregular bills are tough. It is good to pay them semi-annually, like auto insurance, to get savings. But I agree with you. It is hard to take care of those sometimes because those are big chunks that come out. My electricity comes out once every 2 months, and every time it comes out, I almost have a heart attack. So that is one of the budgeting challenges that's real and that you do need to be mindful of. There's a top secret strategy that I talk with everybody about. It's called PYF. I'm going to give you guys a second. Bonus points. If anybody knows what PYF stands for, I'm going to send you a prize. So I'm going to give maybe 10 seconds. If anybody knows what it means, type it in the chat box. I don't think anybody does because I just made up this acronym today. You know what? Both good guesses. Dave and Pat, you are correct. Pay yourself first. I, you guys won. I'll be sending you a prize. Paying yourself first is the best strategy in the world. It's like when I wake up in the morning, if I exercise soon as I get up, I'm good for the day. Because invariably, if I don't exercise as soon as I get up, the day gets busy. It's 7 o'clock at night, and I'm ready for dinner and to wind down. Paying yourself first is the exact same. Before you spend any of your money, have it proactively go to your 401k, to your IRA, to your brokerage account, to your crypto account, and then just spend whatever's left over. So the problem is most people try to save what's left over. Flip it on its head. How about you spend what's left over after you save? I can almost guarantee you that if you spend what's left over after you save, you're going to have a lot more money than people that save what's left over after they spend. So Dave and Pat, $5 ice cream gift card headed your way. Just kidding, we'll find something better than that. I guess I won't make that bet next time because we've got some smart people on the line. So pay yourself first. That's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And the folks we work with, it helps them accumulate money quicker than they would have ever thought. So as your income changes over time, that pay yourself first hopefully continues to grow. So yeah, great job. I mentioned earlier, literally any budgeting worksheet is a good place to start. If you've never used ours and you'd like a copy, just let us know. And maybe what we'll do is we'll just send it to everybody. It's a PDF. And yeah, you can just work through this budgeting worksheet. I often say that on our honeymoon, my wife and I went through budgeting worksheets. That's a real life story, except she was asleep and I was going through the budget. But honestly, it's kind of fun to think about what you make and bring home, and then to write theoretically what you spend, and then to really check into your expenses to see how good you are or how off you might be. Like me, like I said, I'm very off on certain categories. So, Carmen, we will definitely send this to you. And I think we'll just go ahead and make it a point to send it to everyone. And then we're also going to just send the recording because, as we said earlier, we had that tech issue. So, some folks joined late or weren't able to join at all. But yeah, have some fun. This budget sheet, no means is it all inclusive, but we did try to create it in a way where it covers most things. And then if you have some additional things to add, we have some blank lines where you can add in additional expenses. Also, I always create a buffer amount when I make a budget. So if my total budget says I spend 9,000 a month, just tack on another 10%, another 900 bucks, just to cover all those little things you're not thinking of. So adding on that little buffer will definitely help you get to a more realistic number of how much money's left over at the end of the month or left over at the beginning of the month if you decide to start saving and then spending second. We'll talk about some pitfalls. These are probably not a surprise, but not having a budget is probably the number one pitfall. So many people come to me and they're like, Terry, how do I get better with my money? And I say, do you have a budget? And they say no. And I say, well, there you go. There's one way. And I get it. If you have good income, maybe you don't need a budget. But that's kind of like saying if you live in a certain city, maybe you don't need to use the GPS. And while that might be true in some places, I live in Los Angeles, one car accident could cost you an hour or two of your life. So even when I know where I'm going, I still use a GPS because it updates in real time. So that extra guidance doesn't hurt. I've never seen someone get hurt from having a budget. I'll just put it that way. Mistake number two is making a budget that's too strict. Making a budget that's too strict is like going on a diet that's too restrictive. Because when you go on restrictive diets, it can only last for so long, and then you usually swing back in an extreme way. So you want your budget to be realistic and something that you can consistently commit to. So it wants to be that happy medium, not too hot, not too cold, three little bears, you get the point. Irregular expenses. As we talked about earlier, car payments that are once a quarter, payments that are twice a year, property taxes, things like that. We have to take those annualized things and account for them on a monthly basis with a monthly budget. Same thing for gifts, birthdays, holidays. You want to think about how much do you gift in a total year, divided by 12, put it on your budget. Again, those things happen at weird times. So maybe part of your plan is to every month put money into a separate account. Call it your gift account. And as that time of year comes around, you pull from your gift account. Same thing for travel. Let's say you spend $5,000 a year on travel. Well, instead of using a credit card, take 433 a month, put it towards your special travel account. Whenever there's travel, you spend it from that account. Make it simple. We kind of bucket things. So if you make a bucket or a pocket for travel, a bucket or a pocket for generosity, a bucket or a pocket for gifts, makes it a lot easier to give gifts. And if you're someone who's a really good saver, these separate buckets give you freedom sometimes to really use the money for the intended purpose. In my personal life, we do this. In my business life, I do this. I created a marketing bucket where I put a certain percentage of my income every month. And it's like use or lose. I have to spend this on marketing, be that for client appreciation or for meeting new folks or just for improving the service offering. But by bucketing proactively, it helps guide the right types of behaviors without breaking the bank. Lastly, I would say not reviewing your budget is a big pitfall. Things change. Our income goes up, it goes down. Our kids have school expenses, the school expenses go away. Our lives are dynamic. So we want to just make sure that our financial plan and our budgeting and our cash flow plan adapts and it adjusts as our life changes. So those are a few of the budgeting pitfalls to avoid. Again, if there's any questions as I'm going along, please feel free to put them in the chat. We have a few more slides and then I'll answer some questions at the end. But like I mentioned earlier, we'll come back to this topic because we may have some things to expand on and we'll get the recording and the resources to everyone once this is complete. But if you do have any questions, just let me know. There's an old saying, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree, but the old saying is, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And it's partly true because we often find ourselves as maybe a midpoint of the people we spend the most time with. The other saying is, show me your checkbook and I'll tell you who you are. If you're someone who values family time, you value, being able to retire someday, having financial security, but we look at your budget and you're not really aligned, it's going to show. So really think about what you value. Think about what's most important to you, and then make sure your budget reflects that. Example, I personally am not someone who like needs the flashiest, most expensive car in order to feel happy or satisfied in life. So for me, having a super expensive car is not a priority. But if I were to look at my budget and my car payment's super high, then we're not in alignment. I say it doesn't matter to me, but I'm spending a bunch on a car. So just kind of look at those lenses in your life. Is being financially independent important to you? Well, great. How much of your income are you putting towards financial independence? If it's not enough, then we need to readjust. So those are the types of things that I would mention. Is sending your kids to college important to you? Great. How much are you putting towards an education plan, like a 529 plan? Is every single channel in HBO important to you? No. Well, why are you paying $300 a month for DirecTV? These are just the little things that make a big difference over 5, 10, 20 years. So I would just say there's no right or wrong, but just make sure that your spending aligns with your goals and your intent. Tools and technology. I would say my favorite technology for budgeting. I wish my parents were on the line right now. My favorite technology for budgeting is this right here. Growing up, I would see my dad furiously scratching and writing on one of these. And he would be writing what income was coming in, what expenses were going out. Like, this was the secret sauce to being financially independent. So, I think there's something magical about putting pen to paper. Now, if you want to be fancy, You can export your credit card statement into Excel. You can sort by biggest expense to smallest expense. You can go by categories. Just do whatever works for you. But we just want to figure out what's reality. And if you need help, ask your advisor, ask your spouse, ask a couple friends. If you guys really want to do like a brunch and budget or something, let us know. And I think we could figure something out like that at the office. Get some bagels and cream cheese, some orange juice, and we can all get together and really dig in. And I'm being serious. So if that sounds like fun, let us know. But between just a piece of paper and a pen, Excel, we love brunch, you really can get down to the nitty-gritty. And again, I'm a financial pro. I have probably more financial education than 99% of the population. And I still have habits where I like bury my head in the sand and I try not to confront reality about what we're spending on food or gas or electric or whatever. But these are the types of things that gotta confront so that you can make sure if changes are needed to be on track for your goals, that we make those changes sooner than later. Because the sooner you make the adjustments, the easier the path will be to success. It's like training for a marathon. If you start training a week before the marathon, that marathon's gonna suck. But if you start training 3 months before the marathon, it's still gonna suck, but it'll suck less. This is coming from someone who ran a marathon, and yeah, my feet were really mad at me for months afterwards. So, a few more real strategies. I mentioned earlier, paying yourself first or automating your savings is huge. Um, some people I know, they have their bank account set up where their checking account sends money to their savings once a week. Once a week, $50 automatically zaps out and goes from checking to savings. And it's a savings account that they don't have direct access to, so it just builds up in the background. Ask yourself, if someone stole $50 from your bank account once a week, would you notice? Probably not. But if that $50 goes every week for 30 years in the stock market, shoot, that's a lot of money. So automating your saving, rounding up to the next dollar and having it automatically saved. Nowadays, all these little tools exist to help you build wealth, probably more easily than ever before. Another thing you can do is to create alerts. So at IWB, we have some financial tools in place where you could set a budget for, say, your groceries. And if your groceries spend for the month gets to a certain number, you'll automatically get an email that says, hey, you're spending too much on groceries. You may want to slow it down. So these tools exist. We do have some of them. So I have a portal set up where I set some budgets and I get emails on my phone whenever I'm spending too much. It tells me when I have too much cash in my portfolio. I get emails anytime an expense over $500 happens. I set up these little things, we call them nudges, just to help bring conscientiousness to what I'm doing on the week to week, month to month, day to day basis. Does it stop me from spending? No, probably not. But at least it makes me a little bit more aware. And sometimes just being a little bit more aware can be enough to tilt the scales in your favor financially. Last thing on here is to ask for help. If you're on this call, it's probably because you're a client of IWB and you have an advisor to reach out to and talk to. So, whenever there's a goal that's important to you, it's important to us. Put it on our radar. Let's make a plan together to be your accountability partner and to be your battle buddy in getting from where you are to where you want to be. Your action plan. This is just a few things. We're going to send everybody the budget. If you haven't done one in a while, take a moment and knock it out. Spouses love this. This is like the best bonding there is sometimes. So, grab your favorite beverage, be that a water or something else, and just sit back and roll through it together. And it can be a fun activity. Super important when people are getting closer to retirement because the biggest question is, can I afford to retire? How much will I spend? How much will I have? Do I have enough? It's all about your budget. You can retire at 40 if you want, if your spending goal is low enough. So, getting really clear on your spending is super important to help yourself make those decisions and feel confident in those decisions. Check in with your advisor. Yeah, are you saving enough to be on track? You may know the answer to that, maybe you don't. What is the percentage? Think about your 401k, your TSP, your IRA, your brokerage account. Divide the total amount you're saving each year by your total income and see what the percentage is. If it's 10%, 15%, maybe you want to get a little higher. If you're saving 40% of your income, maybe you're on track to have too much money. That's a good thing to know. So just check in with your advisor, see where your savings rate is, think about your needs versus wants, and just make sure that your money is aligned with your values. Go forth and prosper. I think that's pretty straightforward. I guess that's the last bullet point. So I rolled through this at a pretty good clip because, of course, we had some technical issues and we were doing our best to cover all the content and to still end on time, which somehow, some way, divine intervention, it looks like we're ending on time. So as a reminder, for anyone that came late, we're going to just get this recording to everyone via email. We'll give you a PDF with the budget sheet. And then if you have any questions or you want to learn more or hear more on any particular things, just let us know. This is an important topic. The cash flow or budget is like the engine that makes the financial machine run. So it's really hard to get from where you are to where you want to be without having an engine. You can have a car, you can have a Ferrari, but if it has no engine, you're not going anywhere fast. Maybe put it on one of those little wagons and pull it, but without that engine, it's going to be a tough battle. So I'll pause here. We've got a few minutes left. Any questions about what we covered or didn't cover? While I wait for your questions, I will say thank you as always. It's an investment of your time. So I hope it was an investment and not just an expense of your time to be here with us today. The topic for the next session, I think it's Medicare. Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the next topic for September is Medicare planning. So healthcare in retirement. I believe that's what we have up next. You can find us at innovativewealthbuilding.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I don't think we have a TikTok. Stop by the office. There's lots of places you can find us. Don says you gave this ratio to spending saving. Is the same true for someone already retired? Good question, Don. No. In retirement, I hope your savings rate is 0%. That's a funny thing. People that are good savers, they retire and they still save money. It's crazy. A lot of my clients, I check in with them and their savings account is going up in retirement. So truly, in retirement, your savings should probably be 0%. And then realistically, if you're on track to meet all your goals and leave behind more money than you even want to, that's when we start to talk about, do we make adjustments? Do we spend more while you're living? Do we make some enhancements in life? Do we do proactive estate planning to pass money on to the next generation? Do we become more charitably inclined? So that's a long answer. The short answer is no, you don't need to save anything in retirement. Ideally, your savings rate is 0. And if you find that you're on track to meet all your goals and probably have a bunch of excess, talk to your advisor about how you can proactively activate that money to make it as fruitful as possible for yourself, for the next generation, or even organizations you care about. Can we have access to what you submitted a couple of years ago as expenses? What we submitted a couple years ago as expenses. Carmen, could you? Good, Don. He should tell you. I tell clients that as well. Can we access, Carmen, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can we access to what we submitted a couple years ago as expenses? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me explain.
Yeah,
Sorry. When I know every so often we have met with Warren, and then we had to write down everything in terms of expenses, like for the dogs, whatever we spent, so that he could create the assessment.
yeah,
I know we spent a lot of time doing that.
gotcha.
um, I didn't know if that's something that we have available that I could ask to see what we did a few years ago and then play with the spreadsheet that you are going to share. That was all. I didn't know
Yeah,
if I have to call Nancy or someone or if I have access electronically to what I submitted.
yeah, I will send your name to Anne Marie, our office
Hmm.
manager, and she'll take a look in your file. We're pretty good at keeping those types of things in your file. So if we have it, we can definitely make a copy and email it to you. That way you don't have to start from scratch. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh yeah, of course. All right. Any other questions? Well, we are right on time. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Apologies again for the issues we had, but very fortunate for you all to stick with us and to check your email so that we could spend this time together today. So, without further ado, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great one. And please, if we can help, just let us know. Best wishes and have a good one.